everybody, to the District House. My name is Hannah Jo, and I am the interviewer. And tonight we have a special guest. His name is Kyle Nicolaides. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Kyle is a musician. He's super multidimensional, and we're going to get to see different facets of his being expressed tonight. Firstly, through song. So I'm going to hand it off to him. He's going to offer us a presentation about his journey healing through depression with plant medicine and ayahuasca. And then I'll be sitting back down for a guest interview with Kyle. We'll close out with some audience Q&A. And I hope that you all enjoy what tonight has to offer. All right, it's all you.
All this inside of you is perfect and true. So let it take away your pain. Wash it away like the rain. Give up your throne. So much easier to know that the plan that she has for your life is beyond anything your mind could ever write. So sing to the mother and love one another. Dance with the colors and bask in wonder. Now is the hour of her love. Bow to the power of her love. Power of love. Power of love. Power of love. Give up your past. It's so much easier than that. When the plan that she has for your life is beyond anything your mind could ever write. She wants to set you free. So let it take what you don't need. Turn it into light as you melt into an endless sky. So sing to the mother and love one another. Dance with the colors and bask in wonder. Now is the hour of her love. Bow to the power of her love. Power of love. Power of love. Power of love. Power of love.
Thank you.
Wow, I've played, this is my first speaking gig ever. I've been playing music for 10 years. I played in front of like 40,000 people, played on TV, done all these crazy things, never spoken in front of people. So I'm asking for grace and presence and prayer tonight, but it's going to be great. That song is a medicine song that I wrote with my partner to sing at ayahuasca ceremonies to help people heal and help them on their path. Okay, so my name is Kyle, and I'm giving a talk on how does ayahuasca and other plant medicines heal depression. And I'm going to be speaking on depression, but you can easily substitute anxiety for that. Who the hell am I, and why should you listen to me? So my story is I was in a professional rock band for over 10 years. And before that, I started getting depressed around like age 15, 16. Started having panic attacks, had no vocabulary for it. And I thought, oh, maybe if I get rich and famous, and maybe if I make my material dreams come true, then my mental health will get better and it will fill the hole. So I did that, and here's me and my Muppet that my custom-made Muppet for Howl video. Did not heal my depression, the Muppet, but it's a good story. So basically, we did all these cool things, like played Wembley, like went around the world raising hell, screaming really aggressive things at people, and they loved it, Thank you. Played Conan, lived the dream. And, I got the material fame, I got money, I got paid more than I ever had, I had fans, had all these things. And if you look at my journal during that time, it was like London, never been more sad. I was going to be like Tokyo. We didn't go to Tokyo, but for that, I can't think of another city right now. Nashville, never been more depressed. So it was really weird. It was like my material life took off. I got everything I wanted, and then I was bottoming out. So I did that for 10 years, put 2 records out. The depression I had caused the band to break up, and I moved back here, bottomed out a little bit more, and then I managed to get sober, stop drinking, and stopped running from my depression, and then started having tiny little wins, getting sober, going to therapy, taking antidepressants, and all of that led to plant medicine in a really roundabout way. And 2 nights of drinking ayahuasca cured over 15 years of depression overnight. And it was one of those miracles that I'd read about, I'd never believed. I'd never touched psychedelic, I'd never done any drug until I was 28, and I did ayahuasca. And in 2 nights, again, it wiped out all of the depression, and it gave me the spiritual awakening that I've been wanting since I was a kid. And all alongside my depression was this yearning for divinity, yearning for a connection with the divine, feeling God, knowing that there's something up there greater than this body guiding me. And what was mind-blowing the next day, and I wrote a book about it because I didn't know what else to do with my life. What the most mind-blowing part about it was that those 2 nights of medicine changed my entire relationship with depression, because everything I thought I knew about depression was entirely wrong. If you would have told me those 15 years, I would have said depression's the worst thing that ever happened to me. It's ruined my life. I'm never going to get over it. The bane of my existence. And then what happened after that spiritual awakening and that plant medicine with the ayahuasca was that I realized, wait, depression led me to a spiritual awakening. How can it be a bad thing? And that was the real spark of the seed that led to this book. And I wrote this book because this is the book I wish I would have had at 20, because I believed it would have saved a decade of my life. And I basically present a smorgasbord, all these ways out of depression, all these different modalities out of depression, east and west. And, I joke I put my 10,000 hours into depression, so you don't have to. So I've been making the leap from, Guitar Hero rock star dude to talking to old men about guitar pickups after the show to playing in medicine ceremonies. Thank you for laughing at that. I see you. The people watching at home are going to be like, what? So this led to me sitting in a lot of medicine ceremonies, experimenting with a lot of medicine ceremonies, which led me to playing in ceremonies, which has been the biggest 180 of my life, going from being in a rock band to just causing chaos and ruckus to being in very sacred, consecrated medicine spaces, singing in all kinds of different languages, singing original tunes, and basically being a big pivotal factor in people's healings, you know? So just tuning into spirit, tuning into intuition, tuning into source, partnering with the medicine to help facilitate healing for people. That's pretty much my story in a nutshell. The most impressive part of this talk is if I remember what to say with these slides. This whole talk is going to talk about two things, and we're going to get into that, but I just want to share my orientation. My orientation with plant medicine and my orientation with depression just before we dive into it. And my orientation with plant medicine, and I'm going to speak predominantly about ayahuasca here, is that we're dealing with an organized body of consciousness. And has anyone done ayahuasca here? Couple? Okay, rad. Let's ride, baby. Okay. The way that I see ayahuasca is a spirit, and it's an organized body of consciousness. And we're talking about this intelligence that is so beyond our rational minds, so beyond our human minds, that like the way that I equate it is like it's like a speck of sand or like a thimble of water to an endless ocean. Like that's the intelligence we're talking about. And we're talking about this intelligence of being in a room with 20 people all under the influence of medicine. Every single person is getting exactly the healing they need in exactly the way that they're open to receiving it. And then all those healings are working together to help each other heal as a collective. And I say this every ceremony I'm at and every ceremony I work at, but like the intricacy of the storytelling and the divinity of it is just mind-blowing, and it's beyond anything that I could ever comprehend. So I'll be referring to the medicine as a she, and medicine and ayahuasca are interchangeable. Just want to get that out of the way. And then with depression, I want to say that the orientation that I have is that there's a purpose for it, there's intelligence behind it, there's karmic implications of it. So your soul chose to be born in a body with certain lessons, and depression is one of those lessons. And the orientation that I love is trust that there's a outcome and a path for it, that you're walking with the depression that's so beautiful that you never could have thought of, you know? So I think with anxiety and depression, we tend to say that these things are bad and tend to say that, you know, our minds say with certainty that we know where these are leading, but the truth is we don't. Like, we don't know what's good or bad, we don't know where it's leading us, and I just want to create enough space to say, like, yo, what if this is a good thing? Like, what if there's magic behind it? What if there's ancestral healing? Or, like, what if there's healing behind it that's going to cure your lineage and then cure everything going forward? So that's where I'm coming from. And this talk will focus on two topics, period. So the first one is, where does depression come from? I'm going to present a list of all the ways that I've seen can be the root of depression. And I'm going to go through these, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say how ayahuasca and plant medicine works to heal those things. So how ayahuasca gets to the root of trauma, past life trauma, ancestral trauma. And then the second thing I'm going to talk about is, how does plant medicine work to heal depression? So it's like, what are the literal ways that ayahuasca works? And for me, that's on the physical, energetic, mental, spiritual, and emotional level. And then we're going to start the first origin of depression. So, and again, these are roots of depression and origins of depression, and also orientations of depression. So I like the word orientation because it's what perspective are you looking from? And for me, like, what perspective you choose is the most important thing when it comes to anything in this life, because that's where freedom lies, you know? And it's like, we can look at depression as an oppressor and a terrorist, and there's going to be a certain path that you're going to walk down if you see depression as the worst thing to happen to you. But then if you see depression or anxiety, it's like, oh, maybe there's truth here, maybe there's a teacher here, maybe there's wisdom. You're going to walk a completely different path with those. And again, I know it's hard, but to me it's just about carving out a little bit of space to change your perspective. The first root of depression, and this is very Western, is just looking at it through a chemical lens. So that's saying, okay, my depression is purely a matter of, like, I'm not getting enough serotonin or dopamine, there's nothing else, and that's the end of story. And, like, I've heard people talk about this, and they say it as more of like a cop-out, and to me, it can paint some of the story, but it's not the full story. And the beautiful thing about it, too, is that plant medicine and, you know, mushrooms and a lot of these other medicines can up the levels of serotonin and dopamine and all these things. Totally forgot the disclaimer that my orientation is that I'm coming from, like, the spiritual, emotional, personal experience, so I'm not going to dive too much into, like, brain chemistry and nerd stuff. So the second origin of depression is trauma. And we can look at trauma from a bunch of different lenses. So there's trauma that can happen to us in this life. You know, we could be abused. We could have something bad happen to us. And what happens is our body gets stuck in that state, the energy gets stuck, and then we start to tell ourselves narratives around that trauma. You know, so it's like I could be sexually abused or something, and then I could tell myself stories about what that means, about my worth, about my place in this world, about all these other things. So the magic of plant medicine and ayahuasca is that when you drink the medicine, it's sort of like a Russian roulette. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how she's going to work with you. He's smiling because he knows. You don't know how she's going to work with you, and you don't know how it's going to affect you. And this is the beauty of it. Because, again, like, if our minds could figure this out, we would figure it out by then. But, like, we need to go beyond our minds often and into the unknown to heal things like depression and anxiety. And ayahuasca is the unknown. Plant medicine is the unknown. The medicine can go into our subconscious, and we can relive memories. So we can either relive the moment that we got abused or relive some traumatic memory that had an imprint on us. And then what happens with that is we can get a completely different reframe on it. So we can carve out some compassion for the other person who hurt us, and we can see where they were coming from. And sometimes we can even see them as a child and see their life circumstances and what led them to do something so terrible to us. And it can be like, I've had experiences with that, and you're simultaneously holding the rage and the anger of that person hurting you, and then also the compassion and the forgiveness. Like, I've literally seen the karmic matrix of someone and why they would do a certain thing like that. And then, to me, that's when compassion comes in, and then that's when you can start to let it go. When you go relive these memories, you can start to have compassion for yourself, because you can either be blaming yourself for something in the past, you could feel guilty for something, and then you can realize, like, oh, this actually wasn't my fault, and I'm going to free myself from this and be liberated from this. You know, so, like, personally, like, I've had, you know, on tour, I had a really hard time with a lot of people I worked with, and I was really angry about it. And one night on the medicine, you know, I literally relived every tour I was on and saw the people I work with and the people that wronged me. And I was able to have some compassion and actually see them and see their limitations, see their wounding. And then because of that, I was able to divorce myself from them and then forgive them. So that's an example of how the medicine can go into our past and our past memories and sort of free us from that, you know? And that's the thing about trauma too, is that trauma is not current, it's of the past, and we get stuck there. And then the next one is, a lot of people don't realize, well, maybe, I don't want to speak for a lot of people, but I had no idea that pre-verbal trauma was a thing. I was born 2 months early in an incubator. I was without touch, and I thought, like, okay, that had no effect on me. You know, like, I'm not that baby anymore, like, whatever. And I had 3 very, very powerful medicine experiences of actually being back in the ICU in the incubator. And I'm getting chills talking about it. But it's like experiencing me as that baby, feeling all the lights coming at me, feeling fear, not knowing what it was, having doctors come up and touch me, feeling violated at that, feeling my mom, feeling her fear around it, feeling the anxiety and the tension of, like, I don't know if I'm going to live or not, and not understanding any of it. What the medicine did is I relived that, and it gave me clarity on, like, oh wow, like, I felt isolated and separate my whole life from this world, and it stemmed from them, from that moment of being, you know, cast into this world early. So it gave me a lot of compassion for myself, and realizing that baby, that premature baby, is still with me, and as an adult male, it's my job to take care of that, and realizing that can play a big part in who we are, these, like, pre-verbal experiences and this pre-verbal trauma, and not knowing that these very early experiences can still have, like, a hook in us as we get older. And so that's the magic of the plant medicine too, is it can go into that and heal us. The next one is past life, and I'm going to get into some maybe far out territory for some people, and I just want to do a disclaimer that 5 years ago I thought this was far out, and I didn't think any of it existed, and still I started having first-hand experiences in it, and everything made sense. So depression could come from something that happened in a past life, and, like, the orientation for that is that we have our soul, and our soul goes into different bodies, and it comes out, and then it jumps into another body. And it's this idea of like, in a past life, we may have been murdered for something, like speaking up. Like, my example was, I was always afraid walking into rooms because I didn't know if someone was going to hurt me. I was always, hyper vigilant, looking at people, just really tense. And then on mushrooms one time, it was revealed that I was in the 1500s, 1400s in some war. I was an Asian mother with a daughter, and we got killed during a war, like axed. And then it was one of those things of just like, it was something that I'm like, I don't know why I have this fear. I don't know why it's here. And then when you get that download and that realization, everything makes sense. So the medicine can go in our past lives and like clear things out. And like, I've seen a lot of people relive their past life experiences on medicine. I've had a handful of experiences, and it's really powerful. And even more far out is a friend of mine had really bad depression, and he pinpointed on medicine to the point of being a single cell and separating. And it was that pain of being in duality, it was the pain of being in oneness and going to duality that tore him apart. And does that make sense? Pretty crazy. But the thing about it, though, is that the magic here is that these are all experiences and modalities that no amount of talk therapy could ever get to or like ever approach. And it's like having, an experience people have experiences in the wombs too, and feeling their mother's energy in the wombs. So it's really, really magic stuff. It's really profound stuff. And then the last one is ancestral. And from the line of Tantra I study, they say that the family you were born with, you have to have certain karmas in common with them. So it makes sense, if you look back and you're like, okay, like 4 generations back, we struggled with depression or anxiety or money stuff. A hairline or like money beliefs, like depression can be passed on. And it's like, if we look back a couple generations, it's like my great-grandma going through a genocide, escaping the country, having no emotional intelligence, no tools to process what she's feeling. And then she turns that into anger or rage or depression, and then unconsciously passes on to the next generation. We get to the good news about that is that like I've cleared a lot of generational stuff on medicine accidentally, and the beauty of that is when you heal yourself, you heal the lines going backwards and you heal the lines going forward, and it's retroactive, and it's really cool. So the next thing can be a root of depression is emotions and energy. And again, I said that ayahuasca and plant medicine works in physical, emotional, mental, spiritual ways. Ayahuasca can work in a very physical way to heal depression, and that can be purging. And every time I bring ayahuasca up to someone, they're like, I don't want to throw up, I don't want to purge. And I'm like, let me explain to you what it is, and then you'll have a different orientation to it. Trauma can be stuck in our body. We all have an energy body, a subtle energy body, and energy can get stuck there. This can manifest as like physical ailments, like stomach issues, any of these other things. And what the medicine can do is it can literally hit us with such a charge that it blasts that energy out. And that can come out as purging, vomiting. It can come out as purging this way. It can come out as sweating, crying. Because when we talk about purging, you can't do it without talking about emotions and energy. And when we look at depression, we have to look at anger, because there's a lot of ancient schools that see them as two sides of the same coin. And that depression is anger that can't hold its rage. So a lot of people who are really, really angry are usually really depressed. And like I look back at my life, like when I was the most depressed, I had so much rage that I just stuffed inside and didn't know what to do with, because I didn't know how to move energy. I didn't know what healthy rage was. I was scared of my rage, which is a whole nother conversation. But basically what the medicine can do is it can force us to feel things that we don't want to feel. And sometimes this is what people call a bad trip. But all it is you're just confronting something that you have been unwilling to feel. So like one of the hardest nights I had on medicine was when she told me, she's like, hey, you're going to feel everything you haven't been willing to feel in the past 10 years. And it was brutal. And I had to sit with it, So again, like what happens is these energies get stuck. And we need something to hit us with such a charge that it's going to knock that energy out of us and break it up so we can start to become whole again. Because when we cut off any emotion like anger or sadness, like it naturally cuts off happiness and joy. Like in order to be a whole integrated person, we need to be willing and able to feel all the emotions on the spectrum. I like to think of the medicine that it turns up the volume on certain things. And there can be two reasons to do this. Is A, to bring it into your consciousness, because one of the ways the medicine works is, say we're really anxious and we don't know it, or say we have this certain pattern and we're not really aware of it. People eat mushrooms, drink ayahuasca, and it will turn the volume up so you cannot ignore it, basically. So it puts it in front of your face, and like all this medicine is just a mirror for our own psyche. It's a mirror for our mind, and she's not really going to show us anything that is not already inside of us. So that's the thing. It's like when people are scared of it, they're just afraid to face what is in here and feel what's in here. And it's scary. It's really scary to feel things like grief and sorrow and rage, because, you know, when I started feeling those things, I thought I was going to die. I thought everybody was going to abandon me. I had so many narratives around it. So it can turn up the volume of these things so we feel it for the first time. And that can be really unsettling. And again, that's when people are like, I had a bad trip. And it's often the resistance to feeling those things that also leads to a bad trip, where it's like we have anger or sorrow and we don't want to feel it, so we resist it and stuff it down. So it can turn the volume up so we get eyes on it. And then once we get eyes on it, we can start to move it and heal it. Or it could actually clear it, you know? So I think I've had nights where I just scream or hit pillows and the energy moves and the energy clears. And then the next one is mental. So ayahuasca can work on the mental level to heal depression. There's this term called samskaras, and it's this idea of mental loops and mental patterns. So there's a really fascinating, I like depression, this is going to sound weird, but like I like depression and anxiety because it's a journey. And it's like if I broke a bone, I would go to the hospital and the doctor would be like, well, like a car hit you, like that's it, you know, like, and they would just fix me up. But like with depression and anxiety, it's more subtle and it's more mystical, because we know something's wrong with us and then we have no idea where to go and where to look. And I think that that's kind of the fun in it, of like, wow, like you get all these different modalities to explore. Like it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual, and it's like, and it can be overwhelming, but also like I think that's where the magic is, and I'm going to explain that later at the end. So, and there's this idea of conditioning and mental patterning, and if I had to sum up medicine work in like a nutshell, it would be this, because we're all operating on conditioning. We all have these patterns we're operating on, these beliefs we're operating on, and we've been doing it for so many years. You know, so it's like I feel anxious and I reach for my phone. Like, very simple example of that, you know. Or like someone attacks me and I feel scared because I feel like I'm going to get abandoned, you know, or my lover looks away from me and I feel like I'm going to get abandoned. So like, and this also, we get into karmas too, because these are all karmas, essentially, if we look at it through that lens. And if someone, like, if I'm not making sense, someone stop me and I'll go a little slower. So basically, on the mental level, the medicine can knock these patterns out. So like, say we have a belief of like, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, and then we experience non-duality, where there's nothing happening but everything. And you're one with God, and there's no Kyle, there's no District216, there's no anything but just pure love and pure bliss and pure joy. That can knock whatever stories we tell ourselves out and realize like, oh wow, like this is literally just mind. Because at the end of the day, all we're dealing with is mind, and the narratives we tell ourselves and the patterns. The medicine can really help to work, either eliminate those or give us enough space to see the things that we're stuck in to start getting help with that. And that's kind of the beautiful part about it. And that's where integration is. Maybe someone's taking a shower. That's, I don't know. He's like, samskaras, I need to bathe myself in water. Yeah, and that's all integration is, you know. It's like I was talking to Damon about this today. It's like when you drink the medicine, you're given this profound realization, say like, oh, everyone is divine. God is in everyone. How do I integrate that? You know, and it's like we have 30 years of not seeing anyone as divine, and now I have 2 days of like, oh wow, look at this wisdom. Like, how am I going to integrate this into a new way of being? And that's all it is, just new way of beings and new habits. So that's where it comes to like, okay, let me start to practice, like, let me see Scott as divine and what does that actually look like? And all these are in my book, Thank God for Depression, and I devoted like 2 lines to entities because I'd never experienced it, and then the joke was on me because a year later I got like 3 or 4 removed, and like they're real and terrifying and gnarly, and I don't know if anyone has any experience with this, but entities are spirits who have not moved on to the white light, who are hanging on earth. They could be hanging in certain spaces, houses. They could be hanging in bars. And then anytime we leave our body, so like this dude liked to get blackout, drunk a lot on State Street. Anytime you leave your body, and this could be drinking, drug use, it could be also like trauma. If you freeze, you can jump out of your body. It's an invitation for something else to come in. So, like, one of the craziest, I'm going to write this in my next book, but I'll give you guys the teaser, but, like, one of the craziest examples of entity that I had was that I moved back to Santa Barbara after my band broke up. I started going out drinking a lot. This is 2017. Blacking out a lot, making bad decisions, also sleeping with people you shouldn't be sleeping with. Entities can come in. And I started having stomach issues, like digestive issues. Couldn't figure it out. Got all these tests done. It lasted, like, 5 years. It was on medicine one night 2 years ago. I had one of the gnarliest experiences I've ever had on the medicine, like dealing with my biggest fear. And then my stomach started shaking the day after that, and like convulsing and shaking. And I didn't know what it was. It lasted for a year. I talked to a bunch of people, got a bunch of different information on it. You know, some people were like, this is good. Some people were like, this is bad. This is energy blockage, like whatever. And energy was trying to move up and it was hitting something. And then, thank God, I decided to date a badass mystical shaman woman who removes entities as casually as getting a coffee. So one night, I was working with a certain deity and it was bringing up a lot of physical stuff. And then one night, she started giving me a massage, and then it turned into like full-blown exorcism. And you know, she's working on my stomach. I feel a hard spot in my stomach that shouldn't be there. Starts moving the energy up. And it's like, I swear to God, it's like the Exorcist movie. Like, when it gets up to here, it doesn't want to leave. They have different personalities. It gets up to my throat. I start screaming differently. Like, going from masculine pitch, like a high-pitched scream, and we get it out. And then, like, I'm coughing up blood. I'm, screaming for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, she in the back is like, what? Like, I thought we were talking about depression. She's like, Jesus Christ. So I got it out, and the next day, I swear, no stomach issues. First time food went down. It was the first time there was space in my stomach, and I felt relaxed. So entities are a very real thing. I know, not to stress you guys out, like one more thing to worry about. Like election year and entities? What? But yeah, so it could be a very real thing, and you can get them removed, you can get them checked out. The medicine can help remove those. I've played in medicine ceremonies where I've had entities try to get in me. Also terrifying. No amount of being in a rock band prepared me for that. So it's like channeling light, feeling dark energy come at me and pushing it away and telling it, you're not welcome here. I've seen entities jump from one body to another body during ceremonies. Also kind of crazy. One person's hissing at me, and then the entity moves, and then the other person starts hissing at me, like stuff like that. Very real. It's like we got the physical, mental, energetic, and then the energetic plane of these entities. But also, like, the good news is that when we remove these entities, we bring them home. So we're buds with them, we're pals with them. Good talk, scaring the shit out of everyone. So then the next one is spiritual. Depression could be based in spirituality. And what I mean by that is identity. So for the longest while, I based my identity as lead singer of a rock band guy. And what that meant was, like, if we got a tour, I was like, I'm worthy of life. If I wrote a good song, I'm like, I deserve to live. If whatever. Like, whenever we got good news, I was like, yes, like, I'm doing it, and it would prop my identity up. And then if we didn't get a tour, I'm worthless. If we got passed on for things, if someone didn't play our song on the radio, if we didn't get a certain amount of streams, my identity would crash and crater. And I was sourcing my identity in things external. And some of the most profound experiences I've had on plant medicine have changed the way that I perceive myself and changed the way that I perceive the world. Because to me, I think a hidden cause of depression that not a lot of people talk about is identity. Because we're so caught up in like money, wealth, fame, purpose, like mattering appearances, that we can forget that none of that stuff is real. It's real, but it's society real, so it's more of a game. And at the end of our life, it doesn't really matter. What the plant medicine can do is give us an experience of being something so much larger than ourselves, and like hearkening back to that like non-duality idea. And the idea of non-duality is that we live in a world of duality. So there's black and white, life and death, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, like stuff like that. And what happens is we can go beyond those and experience oneness. And that's the unknown, like the undying love, the changeless. And it's a pure state of being, and there's no room for mind there. So just like touching that kind of love and that kind of pure being just for a moment of your life can be enough to completely eradicate depression or offer a lot of relief to it. Because, we get so caught up in the day-to-day hustle and just trying to survive and trying to be, and it's real, and it's very real, and it's hard. But sometimes when we get to, touch these things that are so much greater than us and know, like, oh my God, I'm not just Kyle, or I'm not just my mind, or I'm not just my identity, like I'm something so much bigger, and I exist on a scale that is so much larger than anything I could ever dream of. And it's not just me, it's every single person in this room, it's every single person on this planet. So it's sort of like opening the lens up and just getting a breath of fresh air. It's easy for me to say something like, I'm at one with all beings, or like, wow, I experience unconditional love. But then like to feel that and to know that with every cell of your being in your body, that's where the transformation can come about. And it's like, I've had an experience on Bufo that I talk about in the book of existing in the void, which is emptiness, and just being with the black expanse of nothing, and having that be such a relief. There's no taxes there. There's just pure being. And then I've had the opposite of being in the most like powerful stream of consciousness and realizing like, wow, like this is the totality. So when you're able to touch experience, and you also don't need plant medicine to touch those experiences. Like you can do it with meditation, you can do it with a lot of other modalities. But this is a psychedelics club. So so that's the spiritual aspect. And then when we get to, I want to like wrap it up with the wisdom of depression and how all these things relate to it. Because the way that I see it is that depression is a teacher. There's consciousness behind it. And again, we could say anxiety, we could say bipolar, we could say my career crashing and burning, a divorce, like whatever you're going through, we can put that through that lens. But I choose depression because that's my own path. So I trust and believe that there's wisdom in depression, there's intelligence in depression, and that it's leading you somewhere to some outcome that you never could have imagined. And the thing about all these healings before is that they all come with a side effect and a bonus. So it's like you go to do ayahuasca to heal depression, but then you can accidentally heal your entire ancestry line. Or you can get real clarity to your identity. So it's like my path to healing depression, it accidentally led me to a spiritual awakening and a connection with the divine. So just trusting that like we start taking paths to heal our depression, that it's going to lead us to some other outcome that we never could have imagined. And to me, that's where the magic is, because every single person's path is different, every single person's karma is different. And if we can just carve out just a little bit enough of space to just trust and get curious and know that like, okay, I'm walking a path with mental health or, anxiety or depression, like these things are working for me, then that's where the divine starts to come in, and that's where all the magic can happen. And that's my talk. So, thank you.
I wonder, in your journey, you've come into your body and purged so much that was stuck. And it's my sense that when you were feeling depressed, there was either a heaviness in your body or a discomfort, or maybe there was a numbness and an apathy that you weren't connected to. And today you have a new connection to your body that maybe feels alive or even invigorating. And I'm just curious, like, how were you experiencing depression if it was a felt experience, and how are you feeling in your body these days?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and you nailed it. So I would experience depression on different levels. There'd be the narratives, like, and I talk about this in the book, like the brutal narratives all the time. Kill yourself, no matter what you do. Kill yourself. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve to be alive. Nothing I do is good enough. Like, there's the mental level, and like that's exhausting to keep up with, you know. And when I was at the bottom, I would have to spend a lot of time just to get to like baseline. And then there was the heaviness. Like, I didn't want to be in my body. It didn't feel like it was safe to trust my body and trust the wisdom of my body or trust my feelings, because I felt so depressed that I just felt like I was betraying myself. So I shoved everything up, shoved anger up, wasn't feeling anything. I was drinking, I love caffeine, just hitting caffeine so hard. Basically doing a lot of weed, because I was having panic attacks. So just doing anything to not feel and not be with my sensations. And in essence, that's resistance, you know. I felt like I was in a cloud half the time. And I also want to acknowledge too that, like, I know how hard it is with depression, and I'm not trying to come at some Tony Robbins attitude of like, push through it, you can do it, you know. It's like, I know there's a catch-22 of like, it's so difficult to curate a little amount of space when you're full of brain fog and can't think straight. You know, I remember trying to write music at the bottom of it, and it's like I couldn't string two thoughts together. I would try to program a hi-hat and then be barraged by an avalanche of like negative thoughts, like, kill yourself, you're never going to finish this song, why are you doing anything? So there's a heaviness, a brain fog, a fatigue, like being tired all the time. Now I am in my body and I'm feeling things, and it's a bumpy journey to have anger come online again, and I'm working on my relationship with anger, and I'm practicing valor right now. And the idea of valor is respecting your opponent, respecting whatever emotion is here. And that's another thing with depression is that I'll get to in a sec, but this idea of valor, so it's like whatever emotion is here, I'm gonna respect it, I'm gonna confront it, I'm gonna see it, I'm not gonna run from it, I'm not gonna have a story around it, because, you know, again, like, it's normal to have emotions. Like depression, it's normal to grieve, it's normal to feel depression after a loss, or an in-between stage, but it's normal to feel things, and I'm just getting used to being back in my body and like doing that. But like the other thing I talk about in the book is this idea of a 7-layer shit cake. So it's this idea that like we wake up feeling depressed or like tired or like sad, and instead of being with it, we start to add all these different other emotions on top of it, you know. So like we wake up sad and tired, and instead of just being like, wow, I feel sad and tired, we start to go, I feel sad and tired, what the fuck's wrong with me? So adding judgment, and then adding shame, I hate that I feel this way, and then adding despair and panic, will I ever come out of this? So it's like it turns like a single raindrop into a category 5 hurricane, you know. So then instead of dealing with the actual emotion we're dealing with all these other secondary displays, and then that can make it really hard to know what's going on. So that's why like valor is really important, acceptance, just being okay with what's here. And it's a practice, you know, especially because like I've been trying to get out of my body for years, and also like I'm learning how to trust my body too, and like trust my intuition, trust my instincts.
Yeah, totally. It is a bumpy journey, and I really, really relate to this experience that you're describing. And I've been on my own journey coming into embodiment and exploring what's there for me to accept and integrate into my compassionate heart. And something I want to share is like when I was first being initiated into my spiritual journey, and the like self-love movement was very popular at this time. And that was so triggering to me to hear other people talk about loving themselves, because I was so disconnected from feeling love or experiencing love. And it used to generate a lot of anger and even a projection that people were lying. Right. And so what really supported me on my pathway was coming into acceptance that I was disconnected from love, and acceptance for the anger. And the acceptance gave me just a big enough space for me to get curious about an alternative narrative or way to move my energy, etc. And so I really relate to what you're saying. But I also feel like this applies to respect, because respect is almost like a more advanced relationship to that discomfort or aspect of our experience that we're resisting. And so I'm just naming that for anyone who maybe feels far away from respecting their anger or their grief. Maybe explore accepting its presence and validating yourself that you're human and you're experiencing something very human, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You may reflect on that if there's a reflection coming through, but I just wanted to bring that through.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, I talk about this in the book too. The most important question that no one asks me about depression is, what's the relationship you have with it? Like, if depression were a person standing in front of you, how would you treat it? And what would you say to it? And we can substitute any emotion for depression, because just like what Hannah said, it's like the paths and the actions we take are based on the relationship we have with these things. So again, like if you see depression as a teacher, it carves out a little bit of space. And it's not to bypass anything, because the rage is valid and the resistance is valid. And there's like a inception mental trick of like accepting the resistance. Like, it's okay that you hate this thing. It's okay that you think this is the worst thing that happened to you, and you can tap to that. You can write a letter to it and just like get all those feelings out. It's okay that, you're afraid of your anger or you fear it, because coming into acceptance of even the resistance and acknowledging those things is like what Hannah said, is like, that's the path to freedom.
Something else that you didn't directly mention, but I feel you'll resonate with, and if not, would love to hear your perspective. But when it comes to our culture, slowing down to feel is not really promoted, especially for men or male bodies, men identifying. And so I imagine there's social and cultural layers to the resistance when a male body, or anyone for this matter, experiences something intense physically, energetically, emotionally, somatically, spiritually. And in my experience and in my interpretation, slowing down enough to soften into the experience that's presenting is a connection to feminine energy. And then to receive oneself through acceptance and compassion is rebalancing that within ourselves.
No, that's so, I want to talk for like 5 hours on that, because it's so important. Yeah. I'll start with the masculinity thing. I had this belief that as a man, if I showed depression, it was showing weakness. And if I told anyone about my depression, it meant that I wasn't strong enough to fix it on my own. And when I was 21-ish, I opened up to an older man about my depression. It was one of my old managers, and I was attacked for it. Like, brutal. Like, he told me, he's like, if you're so depressed, you should kill yourself. So, yeah, brutal. It was so sweet. I was like, this is the support I've been looking for. I'm not joking. It destroyed me. Like, it was the reason I didn't talk to anyone about my depression for 8 years after that. This was someone I looked up to as a mentor, and he was the person that gave me my music career, basically, and it was the reason why I was successful. So it was a very big head trip and a lot of confusion and a lot of his own energy. But this idea as men, it's like, we don't talk about our emotions. I thought I was supposed to man up and just toughen up. And if I just could try harder or be more or do more, it would heal me. And that just led to more chaos and sabotage and self-destruction, and then more of a mess to clean up. So I completely resonate with that. And there's work. The men thing is tied into the society thing too, though, because I think there's still, I mean, when we talk about culture, we're talking about, I think everything feels so backwards. I mean, we're worshiping the cultural icons we worship are people who overdosed on drugs, who are artists, who made good art, but they weren't fully healed humans. And we hold these people as gurus and saints, basically, which is confusing to me. I'm like, why don't we hold the actual awakened beings in a higher regard in our society? You know, like a Neem Karoli Baba or people like that. And I think that we're conditioned from such a young age to do, and not to be. You know, it's like we're taught to work so hard to go to college and then do everything in college to get the best job, and then like when we're in college, then we have, or when we're in our, sorry, I'm getting flustered talking about it, but then, you know, when we get out of college, we have to get the best job, and then like have the best family, and like have all these best things, and like it's just emptiness. Like I've walked that path, and for me, it has not led to true happiness. So for me, society, we have to kind of look beyond that and beyond the wisdom of society into what do we do with our emotions? Why are we even on this planet? Like, what's our true identity? What's our true nature? Like, how do we remember who we are? Because then we're either doing things that are keeping us on the karmic wheel of suffering or getting us off of it. And like something as simple as like, have I stopped today? Do I feel safe enough to stop and be in my body? Or do I have to think I have to keep rushing? And it's wild because with social media, it's like we just keep putting the blinders on more and more, to where like I've had days where I haven't felt a single moment. And like to me, like that's heartbreaking, because like that's not why we're meant to be alive. And then depression and anxiety and all these other mental strifes can just compound in that. I don't know if that answers your question, but okay.
There was no specific question. I wanted to hear your creative process.
I did that thing. She told me not to do this thing. She's like, I played myself. She's like, I'm gonna ask you a question, and like people look at me to see if I answered it right, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I'll be fine. And I just did it. I totally did it.
It's a co-creation,
Yeah.
and I'm learning where I can take responsibility as well.
Did I do it right?
No, I think that's great. And it connects to me that ayahuasca was your main medicine for your karmic healing, because there was such a big imbalance for you to be slammed back into this feminine energy of beingness. And what I just received from that last bit is you believe that humans are purposed in the human experience to feel.
Yeah.
And our range gets very limited when there's a rigidity of judgment and criticism and resistance held in our mind and body.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you spoke a little bit that you've experienced bufo and mushrooms, although ayahuasca has been your main catalyst. Is there any other medicine frequencies that you feel really connected to that you want to share a bit about?
Yeah, that's interesting. Rape just came up, which is interesting, and I know why. So there's this medicine called rape. I don't know if anyone's heard about it. Rape. It's tobacco. I'm totally gonna butcher this, but it's tobacco ash, and they mix other things in it. And it's really fascinating to me because it's a sacred medicine, and there's an applicator device, and it looks like this, like the and they stick it in your nose, and someone blows it into your nose. And it's really interesting because I've seen people talk to God on rape and have like the most beautiful healing experiences. And like I've had experiences like that where like I'm out for 3 hours like doing deep healing work, and then I've seen people at ceremonies hitting it like 6 times in an hour, like going nuts. And it's crazy because it's the same medicine. There's no difference in the medicine, but the biggest difference is intention. So you have this on one hand, you have this highly addictive medicine, this tobacco, that people can get very addicted to if they're not mindful about it. But then on the other hand, if you do it in a ceremonial setting and you use intention and prayer and call your guides in and protection, people have them, and you're mindful of your energy body and their energy body, people can have the most beautiful deep healing experiences with it. And to me, it's fascinating because, again, like, I've seen both. Like, I have so many crazy stories of just looking at people in ceremonies and going like, bro, that's like the 5th time this hour, you know? So to me, that's fascinating. You know, and it's people, I think Western people would look at tobacco and not realize the sanctity of it, but realizing like, wow, like, no, like, there's a spirit to this medicine. And quite frankly, like, there's a spirit of caffeine. Like, if there's a spirit of ayahuasca, why is there not a spirit in caffeine or weed or any other tea we drink? And just realizing like, oh wow, like, because for me, like, that intention difference, it's everywhere in our lives. Like, it's with self-pleasuring. Like, you can self-pleasure and look at porn and not be in your body and not feel anything and then ejaculate and then that's it. Or you can self-pleasure as a ritual and like circulate the energy and communicate with God and have a completely like almost Bufo-like experience sometimes with that. And it's mind-blowing because you're in the same room, the same tools, completely different orientation, a completely different perspective. And like full circling it back to depression, same thing, you know? So if I'm feeling a little skirmishy, I will talk to my decaf latte and say, please be gentle. I like being serious and then making a joke like that. And
I really resonate.
Yeah.
And there's been like information I've been exposed to around being able to absorb a wider range of nutrients from our food when we put intentional embodied prayer or blessing into the food and open through communication psychically or through prayer to our body to receive the nutrients from our food. Like, so I connect with this. I'm in practice of this. I do request to my coffee to keep me grounded in the ways that it does. Yeah. And I feel like what you're describing is like a consciousness that can become integrated outside of the ceremony.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, that's so right. And what it also dawned on me too is that like, it's not just with external things. So it's not just with like a cup of coffee or like a joint or whatever. Like, it can be walking into a meeting and being like, what is my energy walking into the meeting? Can I shift that? Like, is there another choice here? Like, I was playing in a medicine ceremony last weekend, and I realized I started playing, and it was so subtle, but it was so sexy that I started playing and I was pushing, very subtly pushing, and I was trying to make something happen, you know? And it's like being with a lover and you're trying to get something to happen. There's a certain frequency with that. And then when I realized that and I let go, and then that's when my intuition came out and was like, you know what to do, but you're not doing it. And then I did it, and then everything opened up, you know? So it's like, that's the medicine work in a nutshell. That's like the life work in a nutshell. That's like the being human work in a nutshell, is that everything, you know, ceremony is not just the ceremony. It's every single moment in life, because we can use every single moment in life to awaken and heal. And every single little trigger, every single thing we do, every single thought we can be witness to and get curious with and be like, like what this, you know? And we're not going to be perfect all the time, but it makes it a hell of a ride.
Totally. And that was something else that came up for me when you were talking about identity, because I feel there's an identity of self, and then there's also an identification that we project of a perceived outcome, and then we attach to that.
Yeah.
And we really want that one vision we have for ourselves. And I am in the like framework of like, you know, this thing I want or desire, or better, or more. And in my experience interviewing folks and coaching, I like to invite the remembrance of infinity.
Yeah.
Which can feel overwhelming, yes, and it can feel empowering and hopeful. And so something that I do want to pose to you is, do you believe in miracles?
Yeah.
And do you believe in
Yeah.
miracles available to all people?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my whole thing. Like, if I can heal depression, anybody can. Wow, I got so excited to answer that, and then my brain just went. Okay. What did you say? You said, do I believe in miracles?
Yeah.
What were you talking about before then?
I was talking about infinite potential and how we have the tendency to be very narrow in what we think is going to be next.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing I was going to say. If I got what I wanted 10 years ago, I would have been dead probably. Like, I wanted to be the most famous musician in the world. I wanted to be the biggest rock star in the world, and that's not what I needed. And it's a very masculine, like, at the ceremony this weekend, someone was like, what's your 5-year plan? And I'm like, bro, like, don't come at me with that. Like, I don't know. Like, and I think often, like, miracle, yeah, absolutely. Miracles happen for everybody, and it's in the space of not knowing. And it's in the space of being okay with not knowing. Because, like, all of this is a miracle. It's a miracle I wrote a book. I didn't think I was going to write a book. It's a miracle I got all this experience with plant medicine, which led to... Plant medicine was only the beginning because it led to this other spiritual practice that I do every day. And, like, that was not on my radar. And again, it's like, we have to go beyond mind because all the suffering we have is in the known. Like, we can't really trust our minds to get out of this because our minds are what got us in it. So that's when we have to call on things like psychedelics or things that can get us beyond the mind or things that can open us up. And it's funny you talk about infinity because, like, I believe in infinity too, because when you talk about something like anxiety or depression, like, they're really bullheaded and they're really ignorant because they think, you know, I walk out of the store and there's literally an infinite amount of possibilities that could happen. Like, anything could happen and in any of our lives. But with depression and anxiety is that it takes that infinite number of things and it says, no, there's 4 things that are going to happen. And they're all really bad. You know, it's like you're going to get outside and you're going to get rained on, or you're going to slip, or like that person is not going to text you and then your life is over. And then what happens is we just start focusing our energy on those 4 little bad things. And then there's a resonance to that because we're only focused on this. And then that's where the space comes in and to be like, wait, like, yeah, this could happen, but also like this amazing thing could happen. You know, and that's the thing with depression. It's like, it's just, that's where the conditioning comes in. It's like, we have to remember that we're just dealing with mind and the way that the mind thinks. And the mind is looking like this and saying like, okay, I'm never going to get out of this. This is never going to end. But that's not the truth. That's not the capital T truth. The capital T truth is you have no, I was going to say fuck, but I just did say fuck. I'll say it again. You have no fucking idea what's going to happen tomorrow, and you have no idea what's going to happen next. You know, and that can either terrify us like infinity can, or it can give us a spark of relief and being like, oh my God, maybe tomorrow I could meet the person that is going to save my life and bring me out of depression. Or maybe in a week I'll hear that thing I needed to hear. And like, that's where just, for me, it comes into like, please just like keep trying things, keep being open, and keep taking baby steps because you have no idea where it's going to lead you. And like, that's the joy in it, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that remembrance, and I also want to acknowledge that if you're inquiring within yourself and wondering, am I open to miracles? And you're maybe in the I don't know space, that's okay. Like, we're here to remember again, like, acceptance for where we're at. And
yeah. I would have done that. Why am I not open to miracles? Will I ever be open to miracles? Look at Becky, she's open to miracles. Look, you know, it's like, don't do that. Like,
yeah.
But then like the crazy thing is like once you start to open to miracles, it's crazy how quick they come in. And it might not be a miracle that you think of, like winning the lottery. It could be a miracle of like someone having a conversation that you've known for years and them saying something that you never knew, and then it changes everything. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Part of me bringing this up is because this question was asked of me, and my initial response, like a week ago, was like, I'm open to miracles for other people,
Oh,
but
wow.
not for me personally.
Yeah.
And so this has been like a real journey for me just recently, to come into embodiment of openness to receive miracle for myself, for
Yeah.
other. And so I just invite that piece of embracing yourself where you are always. And I want to shift us into our final few questions of the evening between you and me, and then we'll open it up to the audience if that feels good to you. Cool. So we have a little series called Change Your Lens. It's like a rapid fire style question. You're not going to ever say the wrong thing, as equally as you're not going to say the right thing. You're always going to say the perfect thing. So my first question for you is, do you believe in an afterlife? And do you think that the psychedelic experience gives us closer access or a glimpse into what that is?
It's okay. You ask everyone that question?
Kinda.
That's a good question. I do believe in an afterlife. Afterlife. I mean, I believe in consciousness. I believe in merging with pure consciousness and merging with pure love. And I'm changing my tune on it because like I'm starting to read things that they're like, death is an illusion, life is an illusion. I used to get real stressed out about death. Oof. And I don't know. And I'm just trying to be here and be present and enjoy it. So my friend jokes, because I would ask her all these questions all the time, and she's like, it's none of your business. I'm like, but what's behind consciousness? Like, what? Like, how are people not running in the streets being like, what's behind consciousness and awareness? I'm like, it's keeping me up at night stressing about it. And she's like, it's none of your business. And I'm like, oh. So I just like, if I had to take a guess, like, I'm more of a tantric lens, of like Ma and Divine Mother and Goddess and believing in that, and that we're all pieces and parts of that. And when we die, if we haven't cleared up the karma or awakened, we'll just come back into another body and another life, and then have some more fun on this planet. And then, when the time's right, we'll just merge into God and then chill for eternity. But then I'm like, what? It's a long time. Like, what do you do for that? It's just blissed out forever. But that's TBD.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about it on another dimension, in another plane.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. There's cool stuff. Like, I just read Autobiography of Yogi, and he's talking about like astral planets and astral bodies, and I'm just like, but I'm just like, chop wood, carry water, just be here and have fun.
And open to infinity.
Yeah. And pay the bills. What else do you do, right?
Play the game. Well, my next question for you is, if you are stranded on a deserted island, but you can have one book and one album to play, what's your book?
Oh my God.
What's your pick of music?
The record would be probably OK Computer. It's kind of depressing for a record for Desert Island. Probably, or the White Album. That would be a good one too. Or Pink Moon. I'm not good at these questions. The book, Tao Te Ching. I have a book of something called the Dakini Mandala, which I'm working for my teacher, but I might take that too. Yeah.
Great. It's just a good exercise for you.
I feel like I can talk about like eternity, and it comes to that, I'm just like, did I blow it? Did I blow the book question? Like, did people get anything from the talk?
You're doing great. Just one last question for me, then we'll open it up to the audience.
Can't wait.
If you could sit in ceremony with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be? And what medicine would you be sitting with?
I would probably get all my friends and family together. It would be ayahuasca. It would be 2 nights. It would be ayahuasca, San Pedro during the day, ayahuasca, and San Pedro during the day. And I'd like curate the group to just make it like a blast. I won't get into like specifics, but probably that, and then rape in between, and pretzels and popcorn.
Vibes.
I didn't talk about the popcorn medicine yet, but
Well, I sense in that you had a profound experience, popcorn and ayahuasca, and that you want to extend that to the people that are closest to you.
I do. Yeah. I am a popcorn shaman. Kernels for knowledge, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's all for me in the Change Your Lens series for now.
Amazing.
And we're going to open it up to the audience to see if anyone else has any questions coming through. And then Kyle's going to close us out with another song. So just opening it up. Yes, I bring you the mic.
So 2 parts. Thank you for shifting my relationship to coffee.
Of course.
Because I didn't know that was a thing.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm so excited for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then how has your relationship with money changed? Because obviously money is still a thing.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Just a side note story came up is like we have a buddy who's like uber tantric. I don't even know how to describe him. He's like one of a kind, but like he went vegetarian. I told someone this story in the car the other day, and they were like, but he went vegetarian, and he like got so sensitive one time he could like feel his broccoli screaming when he was cooking it. Yeah, I know. And it's like he would eat pig and like had to like alchemize the pig consciousness and stuff. So it's like there's the coffee thing's real. Like you can pray with it. Like anything, you can partner with it. We don't have to be fighting everything all the time. The relationship with money. So this is the thing. Like, for me, the medicine wasn't like a one size fits all. Like it was clearing out the mental health stuff, but like all the while, like the money stuff was a disaster. So it's like I was like, since I left my rock band, I started doing all this medicine work for a couple years, and I was having all these profound experiences, but I was like, man, like I've not been on my feet professionally since, but it was my time to have a season of like growth and expansion, and like I will use the word awakening, but I still feel a little like lame doing it. But it's interesting because at the same time, like that rock band that I started, I never fully let it go until 2 months ago. Like it was always hanging out. There was like some records that never got put out, and then it was like I finally decided like I'm done with this. Enough is enough. I did a fundraiser and I let it go, and then like that's when the money stuff started clearing up, which was really surprising to me. And like on that note, there's a whole chapter in the book called Living in Alignment, where it's like you take a life inventory and you look at all these things in your life, from like relationships to living situations to professional stuff to work things to cities where you're living, and you look at all these things and you're like, how could these things be contributing to my mental health? And like you can do that with money, and it's like it's not all the way better, but it's crazy because it's like before that band shift, nothing was enough. It was hopeless. And then when I cleared that out, it was the first time where I was like, oh wow, like all these little wins matter and I can do this. So, but it took a lot of plant medicine to like, this is like, I don't want to talk about like the support group of like Rockstar leaving his band, or like how hard that was. But like, it took a lot of plant medicine to realize like, yo, that dream you had at 20 is not going to come true. And like, that's something you need to let go of. And like, that's really painful. That's like a death of like, wow, like I'm not going to play the bowl with my band, and we're not going to do these things with the band. And like, I have to admit that and accept that, because if I'm in denial of that, that's going to keep me stuck, So it's like, I guess it's looking for areas where there could be blockages or being stuck.
When did you decide to write a book about depression, and how long did it took you to?
That's a good question. So it was actually during my second ayahuasca ceremony. I got out of it, and she planted a seed that I could write a children's book. And it was the first time that idea ever popped out, and it was about like, we all have a little garden in our heart. It was like, it was really sweet and dorky, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, never thought about that. And then it was right before the pandemic, and like I didn't know what to do with my life, and I was kind of a mess, and I sat down. I had an idea for a blog, and I sat down at a cafe in God, it's so cliche. I can't. Oh my god. Oh, I'm like the dude that I'm just like, really? You're at Cafe Gratitude? Like, like, it is a great place to be. This is funny. When I was like 21, I went there on a date, and a girl from college came and she walked by and she's like, "You would go here?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, okay, so I'm at Cafe Gratitude, and I had this idea for a blog, and it was like 10 things I wish I would have known about depression, or like the 10 most important things about depression. And I sat down to write it. I was like super ADHD, like couldn't sit down for more than like a half hour, and like I tried to write it and like didn't work. And the idea I forgot about it for like 7 months. And then the pandemic hit, and then I was doing some personal work, and I started microdosing mushrooms, but I was accidentally macrodosing because I didn't look at how much you actually had to do. So whoops. And then I was doing the artist way, and then like halfway through the artist way, there was some exercises, and then I was at Handlebar, and I sat down and I was journaling, and I was like, oh fuck, like that's not a blog because it's a book. And then it hit me, and I was like, oh fuck, you gotta write a book now. And the next thought I had after that was like, well, no one told you how to write songs, and like that turned out well. Like no one told you could be like literally not one person was like, you should be a singer, like you sound good, like. And I did it, and I kept doing it, and now people are like, your voice is divine in ceremonies, I'm healing people. So I just got the download, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna write a book. And like ADHD too, I didn't think about how hard it would be. I didn't think about the process, and I just like jumped in, and I just made a complete mess for like 2 or 3 months. And then I read this book called The Scribe Method, which they teach you how to write a book, like. And then I was like, maybe we should get an outline. And then when I started writing, I couldn't write for more than 15 minutes a day just because my focus was so bad, you know, and I could barely string a sentence together. Like, I had a really hard time with, like, concepting ideas and, like, putting paragraphs together that made sense. And then I just got better at it, and, like, 15 minutes turned into 30 minutes, turned into 45 minutes, and then at the end I was writing, I think, 3 or 4 hours a day. And, like, my main inspiration was, I think it took me... It was a crazy period, actually, because I was writing the book, and then I was also recording the last Beware Darkness record. So I wrote 50 songs, and we recorded 50 songs while I was writing the book. So I would like write the book and then go record 20 songs. It was ridiculous. And then I'd go back in and then write the book and then go back in and record. And I think it took like 6 to 9 months, or maybe a year-ish. But my main inspiration was a buddy of mine had been writing his book for 5 years. And I was like, man, I can't be that dude who's like writing the book for 5 years. Like, it has to be like 1 year max. And it's funny because people have already asked me about my next book, and I started telling them about it, and I was like, whoops, I guess I'm writing it. So, and my thing with the book too is I'm like, if I can write a book, anybody can write a book, you know? Like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
What's your next book?
That's a good question. It's going to be called Thank God for Anxiety. Yeah, so I'm going to have a series, Thank God for Depression, Thank God for Anxiety, and Thank God for Creativity. And the anxiety one is going to be similar, like you could take this book and just substitute the word anxiety for depression and it would still work. So then the question is like, how do I add more value with something like anxiety? And it's going to be a lot more stories, because the feedback I got with this is they want more crazy stories, and like I just have the most batch of crazy stories ever. So it's going to be a lot more stories, and then it's going to be a lot more trauma based, and like how a trauma can affect a whole life. And then there's going to be practical tips on like how to deal with anxiety when it's happening, and then also how to pull it by the root. And then it's going to be about like trust and safety and all these things. And then the other one is Thank God for Creativity, which I'm like spinning out because I'm excited about both of them and I don't know which one to start first. And that's going to be, if you're a blocked artist, what are the mindsets? And it's basically, it's like how to make the creative act an offering to the divine and a prayer. And it's really cool, and I'm really excited about it. And like I'll have guitar students, and I start like testing it on them, and they're just like, what, bro? This is amazing. So I'm excited about that. And then like I think that's it for books for right now, unless like something else happens. So I wrote this song with my partner Marcy, and it's crazy because we had the same vision together when we met a year and a half ago, was to write healing songs for people in ceremonies. So we asked the question, like, what does someone need to hear in ceremony when they're having a hard time? And then we wrote this tune, and then I went out to play a bunch of ceremonies, and I'm like, Mars, like, I think these songs are good, like people are responding to them really well. And yeah. Nothing's certain, and all is lost. When there is darkness, give it to God. Find the light that guides me home. In you I find that we are never alone. In you I find an everlasting friend. In you I find a beginning with no end. All of your light, all of your endless light, all of the light inside your heart that wants to shine. All of your life, all of your endless life, what you've been looking for has been inside. So let it shine. Let it shine. In you I find a place that's always safe. I'll meet you on the everlasting plane. In your arms I can always fall. And when you're no harm comes at all. All of your light, all of your endless light, all of the light inside your heart that wants to shine. All of your life, all of your endless light, what you've been looking for has been inside. So let it shine. Let it shine. Give it to God, give it to grace, give it all away. Give it to God, give it to grace, give it all away. Give it to God, give it to grace, give it all away, all away. All my life I've been looking for you. All my life I wanted something true. All my life I wanted something real. That my heart, spirit and soul could feel. And
it's been inside of me the whole time. All my life I've been looking for you. All my life I wanted something true. All my life I wanted something real that my heart, spirit and soul could feel. And it's been inside of me, inside of me. God's been inside of me the whole time. Give it to God, give it to grace, give it all away. Give it to God, give it to grace, give it all away. Give it to God, give it to grace, give it all away. All away. When nothing's certain and all is lost, when there is darkness, give it to God.